I can't watch anything related to true crime anymore without thinking that one episode of The Office where they're playing the murder mystery game. Michael Scott just walks up and just goes, "There's been a murder." I've had KENREX on my radar for quite a while now, for one reason and one reason alone, and that is because I loved the last thing that these creators made. Cruise was very similar in approach to KENREX, a one-person play where Jack Holden plays every single role, switching between people, but whereas that was set during the 1980s and during the AIDS crisis, KENREX instead places itself with the true crime story of Ken Rex McEldroy. And it is gripping, it is thrilling, it is theatre at its finest. So why did I love KENREX, and why do you absolutely need to go and see it? Let's find out. But if you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Ellie, I talk about theatre. I am the most chaotic theatre person on the internet. I do reviews, I do discussions, I do versus brackets and rankings, and if any of that sounds interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me, it helps out the channel. But let's dive into KENREX. Before we can really speak about this play, we need to speak about Ken Rex McEldroy and the town of Skidmore, Missouri, where this play is set. Back in the 1980s, Ken Rex was the town bully. He lived in a town that was far away from law enforcement. If you called the police, it would take them about an hour to get there. And this allowed Ken to get away with a lot of crimes. He was intimidating, he was quick to anger, and terrorized this town for many, many years, constantly getting away with his crimes. Until one day, the town had enough. And this is the story that KENREX explores. One actor and one live musician retell this story with every character, moment, and detail, telling it through the eyes of David Bard, a prosecutor, an outsider to the town who's moved close by. And it's a thrill to watch this story unfold. The adaptation of the story is so wonderfully tense. It's everything you want out of a true crime drama. The attitudes, the characters, these people, it brings you directly into the mind and perspective of someone like Ken. And as you see more and more of his actions, as you see more and more of the effect that this has on the townspeople, you start to feel on their side. You start to feel the reasons and the anger and the fury at this man who's constantly getting away with everything. I think it's incredible Holden's ability to just make you care about these townsfolk, especially when you remember that he is the only one performing these characters. I'll speak in more detail about his actual performance later, because I feel like it deserves a segment of its own, but it is a genuine feat how he brings this entire town to life. And it's so important for this story to work and for the themes to work of this piece that you feel on side with these characters, that you feel aligned with them, that you see the danger that a character like KENREX poses, especially as his actions start to directly affect people like his future wife, Trina, a young girl, an underage girl that he essentially grooms. And of course, the people he threatens, the houses he burns. And the whole piece culminates in this really interesting discussion about justice. Obviously, throughout this story, we see the flaws in the justice system in America. It's something that we are very aware of, especially as the years have gone on. I think there's a certain distrust in law at the moment, especially as we've seen forces take control of this. If we're going to use America, for example, things like the Supreme Court being overloaded with justices who lean a certain way politically. Lifetime appointments, which means that these enforcers stay on here full time. Once they're in, they are in. And also the recent actions of Trump pardoning all of the crimes committed by the people storming the Capitol on January 6th. We've seen distrust build in law enforcement because of movements like Black Lives Matter, highlighting the flaws in these systems, the systematic racism that can build in these forces. And KENREX explores that from another perspective, the perspective of someone who is constantly getting away with his crimes because of where he lives, because of how his lawyer twists the evidence. And it asks Very interesting questions. Questions like, what is justice? What does justice look like? How far will people go to get that justice? And once that justice is got, is that justice for everybody? Who has the right to serve this justice? It's a really interesting twist, a really interesting direction to take it with this commentary and with this idea presented through certain characters that we meet along the way. I speak about it fairly vaguely, so I don't spoil this story from, 40 years ago. God, the 80s was 40 years ago. Oh, wow. This is a really fantastic, layered piece of theatre. And what's more, the stagecraft of this piece is phenomenal as well. There is quite a monumental task that this play has to go through in creating this entire town. And it's achieved through a lot of this direction by co-writer Ed Stambollouian. They use so many different techniques to create this town, to build the atmosphere of the piece, and to deliver this story. The play opens with this vintage tape recorder, these pre-recorded messages from Annette Parker, who is exploring the case of KENREX and kind of sets us up on this path of David Bard re-exploring the story. There's a really cool moment at the start of the play where it starts with this tape recorder and slowly, from the pre-recording of David on that, it slowly morphs into Jack Holden taking up that role. He starts by speaking over the track, the two voices speaking at once, and slowly, so slowly that you don't even really notice it, the voice on the tape recorder disappears, only leaving Annette's voice on there, with Jack now fully taking over the role of David. There's so many cool moments where we see techniques like this, the live being mixed with the pre-record. Obviously, Annette's voice runs throughout the entire piece, constantly commenting, trying to push David in certain ways to get what she wants out of this story, and to find more evidence for the case. But there's also phenomenal moments where we see this through the music of the piece. There's a moment where we see a performance happen, this being live performed by Jack Holden, but at some point, partway through, this switches into a pre-record track so that Jack can go from the stage into the crowd to turn into KENREX again. Watching on for this performance is a moment you don't even notice when it happens, but the switch is so slick, so well handled, and allows this almost eerie atmosphere to take hold in Jack Holden. There's a lot of technology used throughout this show, some really cool pieces of set that are moved around. This can be used to create a stage at the back. This can be used to create platforms, a judge's desk, all created by this one moving staircase that Jack moves around, and a door frame, along with LED lights, one side white, one side red, adding some extra really cool lighting touches to certain scenes. With these two simple set pieces, they create an entire town, bringing you from place to stores, to homes. There's another really cool lighting effect with a car. These two spotlights at the back of the stage that shine through the darkness to create the different vehicles in the show. Most commonly, KENREX's truck, which becomes a symbol of danger throughout the show as well. We see these microphones planted throughout the show, being placed on stands, sometimes being used to replicate different people in the town. So even though there is only one performer on the stage, they can create this atmosphere, this building movement of the town, these people coming together, these people scared. Created in a really dynamic way on stage with these spotlights and a lot of pre-record voices to allow Jack to overflow his own voice. And of course, there is the live soundtrack being created throughout the show by John Patrick Elliott. It is phenomenal. I'm so glad that they have released an album with all of the music on it, because I'm going to be listening to all of it later. It has this almost electro-western vibe to it. It's very country music, and I do enjoy a bit of country music. If you look to the side of the stage throughout the entire show, you have John in full view creating all of this music live, performing these songs. It's incredible effort. And these highlight so many different moments, add an extra energy to the piece, and help to build this atmosphere in so many different moments. There's so many wonderful choices in this direction, in the set design, in the music. This whole thing coming together, all of this stagecraft really bringing this entire piece to life. But at the center of it all is Jack Holden. What a performance. It is only fair and just to dedicate an entire section just to Jack Holden in this piece. Jack Holden plays every single character. Apart from the voiceover we hear from Annette, he is the only voice we have throughout this entire show. He plays David. As I previously mentioned, David was a prosecutor in the final case against KENREX, and is being questioned himself here. He's an outsider to this town, but he's a very down-to-earth presence and a great narrator through this piece. There's Ken Rex McEldroy, who you feel the power and you feel the tension every time that Holden morphs into him. There's something about him you can't take your eye off. This unmovable object. His face sunken, his shoulders slumped. But with this still such a powerful stance, such a strong presence, with a terrifying slowness to the way that he speaks. He can take his time, he can bring every single word out as quickly or as slowly as he wishes. There's this quiet fury behind him at every single moment in this piece, almost like it's ready and about to explode. The presence that Ken Rex as a character has in this show is undeniable and so extremely important. You need to be scared of a character like Ken Rex to understand what this town has gone through for the past few years, and they do it so well, all just in these simple ways that Jack molds himself, changes, and holds the character of Ken. And in a complete contrast to that, you have a character like McFadden, Ken's lawyer, the person who's constantly getting him off. He's so bubbly, he's a bit bumbling in a way. He has a really camp theme song, which is iconic. He's very light-voiced, but behind all of that is a real intelligence. He understands the law and he understands exactly how to get his client off. You almost don't expect him as well. It's a really cool twist on the character, because he's very charming in a way, in all but his actions. You have a character like Trinna, someone who is really young, really naive, a little bit sassy in a way. Someone who is taken advantage of, that innocence and naivety. And you see how the power of being alongside Ken gets to a head in a way. You even see a lot of her mannerisms change throughout the piece. Really expertly crafted by Holden. The difference you see in Trinna when she is on her own versus when she's standing there with Ken is night and day. Those are just a handful of the characters that Jack plays in this piece, and every single one has so many different defining character traits. Every single one is so unique. Every single one has their own arcs and movements, mannerisms, tones of voice that allows you to differentiate every single one. And what's more, Jack morphs between these characters with ease. Holden has entire scenes worth of dialogue exchanges between 2, 3, 4 people, switching between them every 5 seconds. With quick and subtle shifts really defining each one. It's almost like Holden disappears. You can imagine every single one of these characters on stage like they are actually there without them all being there. And that's all just through Holden's absolutely spectacular portrayal. Whether it's an argument in a shop, a clash in a bar, phone calls and meetings between old friends with an elephant in the room, something that they really obviously aren't speaking about. The silence, the times that Jack holds these moments, the tension building. You know exactly where this conversation is going to go. You know exactly how this is going to end. You know the betrayal and twists and the turns. And you're waiting for someone to speak up about it. And they beat around these topics. It's masterful. You are on the edge of your seat as you're watching Jack bring these characters to life. And you forget it's him. You completely forget it's him. He morphs into all of these characters, gives them each their own unique voice, I cannot say enough about this performance. This is what Jack Holden does best. He did very similar things in Cruise, but even watching it now, it's so strong. He is a captivating presence in every single role he plays. He has the audience in the palm of his hands. Whether that be for a character like KENREX, who is terrifying, who is stern, who is furious, or for a character like McFadden, or the Mayor, a bit lighter in tone, a bit more comedic. Holden can do it all. This is one of the best performances of the year so far, and I feel like by the end of the year, it's still going to be. KENREX is absolutely unmissable theatre. In a space like the Southwark Playhouse Borough, it just absolutely soars. Theatrical storytelling at its peak, using everything it has to build the picture of the town of Skidmore and of Ken Rex McEldroy. They build the atmosphere, they build the characters, and because of it, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. If you are looking for a great true crime piece of theatre, I don't think you need to look any further. But what do you think? Have you seen KENREX either at its run in Sheffield or at its current run in London? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me, it helps out the channel. Here's some links to some other videos on screen right now and a link to my Instagram if you'd like to drop me a follow over there. There's other social links and a merch store in the description down below. But that's it for me today, and I hope you see you next time. Bye.